Okay, so you know how it is you're trying to get to the bottom of something really fast? Like, you just want the key points. You don't want to wade through a ton of stuff, right?
Right, exactly.
That's what we do in these deep dives. And today is well, let's just say it's a pretty wild set of observations. Straight from this recent online video, we're basically giving you the cheat sheet to some really strange events and perspectives.
Yeah, you sent me this transcript,
Mm.
and I got to say, there's some pretty interesting stuff in there.
Mm.
Personal experiences, possible global shifts, like
Yeah.
the whole range.
We're going to figure out what jumps out from all of this and what it could mean for how we look at the world.
I like it.
Okay, so the speaker starts off with something that's very human and a little bit, well, kind of haunting. He talks about having a missing elderly woman's sweater on his desk. Apparently, this woman was known for going on long walks, and now she's just vanished. So you can really feel the speaker struggling with this local mystery. What's your take on starting with something so personal like that?
Well, it immediately makes things real. It's not just about facts and figures. There's a real human story here, the sweater. It's like a symbol of her life, a reminder of the unknown. And maybe it's a way for the speaker to try and connect with what's going on a deeper level.
Yeah, and then it's like a complete 180. He goes on to describe seeing what sounds like a UFO. Can you imagine? This happened around 9 p.m., just before a Poland national team soccer match was supposed to start.
Wow.
His wife is the one who pointed it out.
No kidding.
Yeah, so just picture it. You're settling in for a big game, and bam, something totally unexplained shows up.
Totally. It's like the ordinary becomes extraordinary in a split second.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that the unexpected can just pop up anywhere, anytime.
Right. And then he does what a lot of us would probably do. He grabs his phone, snaps a picture from his kitchen window, and then goes outside to get a closer look. He even shows the photo in the video. It's moving towards their building, then hovering above. What do you think it says about us that our first instinct is often to grab our phones and record these things?
I think it's part of our nature. We want to understand. We want to document the unusual. And in a world where technology is everywhere, taking a picture or video, it's like trying to prove the unbelievable, to make it real.
Like proof. Yeah.
Exactly.
So he does what a lot of people would do. He reaches out to Robert Vernatovich.
Of course.
And the explanation, it comes back surprisingly quickly. It was a fuel dump in space, apparently visible from different places because of the way the sunlight was hitting it after sunset. What does this quick explanation tell us?
It's a powerful reminder that we can jump to some pretty wild conclusions. When we're faced with the unknown, our minds tend to fill in the gaps with the most imaginative ideas. Even when there's a simpler explanation, it's a good reminder to look for solid facts before we let our imaginations run wild.
Absolutely. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this is right up your alley. So the speaker starts talking about an earthquake in Jarocin. He had previously predicted an earthquake in Italy, and it actually happened. Then he suggests something similar might happen in Poland.
Okay, now it's important to remember that when he talks about something similar in Poland, he's making a distinction from those typical tremors they call tautonacia, the kind you get in places like Silesia, often related to mining. Those are very different from a real tectonic earthquake.
Right, like a true earthquake.
Yeah. And then he points to a news report from March 26th, 2025, about a very rare event, a real earthquake in Wielkopolska, specifically in Jarocin. It occurred on the first day of spring, March 21st at 4 a.m., registering a 2.3 magnitude. The report really stressed how uncommon this kind of seismic event is in Poland. What are your thoughts on the speaker's feeling leading up to this report?
It's fascinating how his feeling lined up with this rare earthquake. Now, a 2.3 magnitude earthquake, it's not that big. It's not likely to cause a lot of damage. But the fact that it happened in Poland, that's what makes it so unusual. It definitely makes you wonder about intuition. Can a feeling be connected to a real event like this? It's definitely something to think about.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's switch gears a bit. From these huge events to something deeply personal, the speaker describes a meeting with a couple who had lost their son in an accident. They were looking for answers, trying to understand their legal case. Imagine the grief they must have been going through, just that need for some kind of explanation.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that people often search for meaning in the most unexpected places, especially when they're dealing with loss.
So during the meeting, the mother asks if the speaker had any feeling or message from their son. And this is where it gets really strange. The speaker says he immediately thought, you have to say hello to Milka. He even wrote it down, but didn't say anything at first because the name seems so odd. Their son was around 30. What was your first thought when you heard this part of the story?
It's like a red flag. It's clearly something important. The fact that he paused, wrote it down, it shows that even he recognized how strange this impulse was. It makes you question where that kind of specific information could come from. It seems so random.
Yeah, and get this. The son wasn't married, but he had a girlfriend named Emilka. And guess what? The mother often called her Milka.
Wow.
The speaker talks about how shocked they all were. What do you think is the key takeaway from this story?
What strikes me is the very specific, verifiable detail that the speaker couldn't have known, through any normal means. It raises some big questions about connection, about communication, and whether there are ways we can perceive or access information beyond our senses, especially in moments of intense emotion, like a parent's grief.
It's almost like a sixth sense or something.
Yeah, exactly.
The speaker then reflects on these kinds of impulses and wonders if those who have passed on still have some kind of awareness. He even says he believes in telepathy, being superior to technology, and uses an analogy of old and new laptops to suggest a transfer of essence. What do you think about this perspective?
Well, it's definitely venturing into uncharted territory, exploring ideas about consciousness and communication that science can't fully explain yet. The laptop analogy, it's an interesting way to picture information or essence, maybe continuing on in some form, even after the physical form is gone. It speaks to that human need to find meaning and connection beyond what we can see and touch.
Yeah, it's like a need to believe that something continues on.
Exactly.
He goes on to suggest that the parents' love and their grief created a link that allowed their son's spirit to communicate this Milka message. He sees these small and inexplicable things as being significant in his work. Why do you think these personal stories resonate so strongly with people?
Because they tap into those universal human experiences. Love, loss, the desire for connection. That search for meaning when we're faced with the unknown. These stories give us a glimpse into possibilities that go beyond everyday explanations. They spark our curiosity and maybe even offer a sense of hope or wonder.
It's like they offer comfort in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now he circles back to the missing woman. Briefly mentions the difficulty in finding her because of her age, possible disorientation, and the large search area. It's a stark reminder that these very real and often unsolved human dramas are happening all around us.
It brings us back to that reality,
Yeah.
where things don't always have easy answers, and where human vulnerability is a constant.
And then the speaker shifts gears again, this time into a series of impressions and concerns that he just kind of throws out there. First, he talks about a feeling that a missile will hit a non-warring country, suddenly, unexpectedly, with no clear origin or reaction afterwards. It's a pretty chilling thought.
It introduces the sense of potential for sudden global events, events that could have massive consequences. And the fact that there's no clear origin or reaction, that just adds to the unease.
Right, it's like this unknown threat.
Exactly.
And then he says he has a feeling that a plan to remove Trump has begun. And he's very clear that this is not a political statement, but simply an observation, regardless of where you stand politically. It's a pretty big claim.
Yeah. And by saying it's apolitical, he's trying to focus on the potential sequence of events, rather than taking a political stance. It makes you think about those underlying currents of instability and conflict that can exist within any political system.
Yeah, like the potential for things to really shift.
Exactly.
Then he shares this disturbing image of the Polish president and prime minister being controlled by powerful outside forces, possibly leading the country into a conflict. It raises all sorts of questions about national sovereignty and influence.
Absolutely. It taps into that fear that nations aren't really in control of their own destiny, and that outside pressures can influence political decisions, especially when it comes to war and peace.
It's like a loss of control.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it gets even darker. He talks about a horrific feeling of an entire family being murdered in a small town by foreigners, and suggests that this could be designed to start a conflict between different nationalities, with the media fanning the flames. It's a truly disturbing premonition.
It really is. It brings up the possibility of deliberate acts of violence, meant to divide people and create tension. And the mention of media influence. That's key. It highlights how the way stories are told can shape public opinion and even fuel conflict.
It's like a manipulation of perception.
Exactly.
There's also a quick mention of a request for a vision on Israel and the Middle East, referencing an earlier discussion. It seems like this is a region that's constantly on his mind.
Given the ongoing conflicts and complexity in the Middle East, it's understandable that people are looking for answers and trying to make sense of things.
Yeah, it's a region with a lot of history and tension.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. The speaker then talks about Donald Tusk. He feels that Tusk is planning to reveal a long-held secret about Poland, something Tusk disagrees with regarding the current situation. The speaker believes this will happen in a speech or media appearance and will be badly received by the president and opposition, implying some negative consequences for Poland. What do you make of this potential revelation?
It suggests there's a possibility for some major political shakeups in Poland. A long-held secret implies information that could disrupt the current political landscape. And the impact could be huge, depending on what it is and when it's revealed.
It's like a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, exactly.
He also mentions a viewer's comment about a leak from Trump's team regarding a possible attack on Yemen and says he had a similar feeling and will look into it. It's almost as if his intuitive impressions are aligning with more conventional intelligence.
It raises the idea that these intuitive insights might actually come before public information. Like they're foreshadowing events. It definitely warrants further investigation.
It's like a premonition.
Exactly.
And then he expresses concern about a potential betrayal between Trump and Putin. The idea is that Putin might turn on Trump after getting what he wants, which could destabilize the whole world and create an extremely dangerous situation, potentially the most critical since the Ukraine war began. It's a pretty sobering thought.
It highlights the unpredictable nature of global power dynamics, especially when you're dealing with leaders who have their own agendas. The fact that he compares it to the early days of the Ukraine war emphasizes just how serious this could be.
Yeah, it's like a powder keg.
Exactly.
Looking ahead, he predicts major global disruptions in April, economically, financially, and in terms of peace prospects, it's not a very optimistic outlook.
It paints a picture of a very volatile and uncertain future. Across multiple aspects of our world, it's a call to pay attention and be prepared for potential shifts.
Yeah, to be ready for anything.
Exactly.
He also shares a feeling that Trump is putting a plan in motion for a major war outside of America, which will escalate global tensions. It echoes those earlier concerns about global instability. What are the potential implications of a plan like this?
Well, it raises serious questions about the possibility of increased conflict around the world. Where would this war take place? And how would it impact global peace and security? These are things we need to consider.
It's a lot to unpack. When it comes to the economy, he expects Trump to make a move to lower the price of gold, which is currently under $3,000 an ounce. But he believes this will only have a small temporary effect, and that gold prices will likely keep rising. It's a pretty specific prediction.
It is. It gives us a concrete example of a potential economic intervention, and a counter-prediction based on market forces. It suggests that even powerful figures might not be able to control long-term trends.
It's like a tug of war.
Exactly.
He then goes back to his feeling about Tusk having crucial information that he feels obligated to share about decisions affecting Poland that are being made externally and unfavorably. It reinforces that earlier point about potential political revelations in Poland. Why do you think this particular concern keeps coming up?
It suggests a deep anxiety about national sovereignty and the lack of transparency in political decisions. It's a concern that probably resonates with many people in different countries. That feeling of not being in control of your own fate.
Yeah, that feeling of being powerless. After a quick shout out to viewers, he addresses the cosmic swirls that were seen in different places. Explains that it was the high-altitude fuel dump, visible from many locations just like the moon. It's good to have a clear explanation for those kinds of widely observed events.
It really is. It's a perfect example of how easily we can misinterpret unusual things when we don't have the right information, and how a scientific explanation can often demystify something that seems extraordinary.
It's like taking the mystery out of it.
Exactly.
Responding to a question about discoveries under the Pyramid of Khafre, he says he felt the information shared in a previous broadcast was exaggerated. It shows he's willing to reevaluate things.
Absolutely. It demonstrates a willingness to revise his interpretations based on new information or further reflection, which is so important when you're trying to understand these things.
It's like being open to being wrong.
Exactly.
Talking about the Seine River in France, he has a feeling it will be in the news soon, and expresses concern about potential poisoning, possibly a terrorist act affecting part of the river. It's a specific and unsettling concern.
It is. The fact that he names the Seine River mentions poisoning and terrorism. It makes it stand out. And it raises concerns about possible future threats.
Yeah, it's very specific.
It is.
Back to Trump. He has a strong feeling that secret services are conducting a fast and highly confidential investigation into him. He sees two possible outcomes: proof of wrongdoing leading to immediate removal, or an attempt to harm him. The stakes are definitely high.
It shows the intense pressure and potential dangers that come with being a high-profile political leader, especially in such divided times.
Like a pressure cooker.
Exactly.
Briefly addressing Tunisia, he says he doesn't have any negative feelings for Polish residents there, but senses tension in the Middle East and Europe in general. It's like his sense of unease is expanding.
It suggests a wider feeling of instability and potential conflict across those regions, even if there are no specific threats to particular groups.
It's like a spreading unease.
Ex-
Regarding Gaza, he has a pretty bleak outlook, suggests that residents will be forced to leave if they want to survive, and those who stay will face gradual elimination. Despite the world's so-called goodwill and the mainstream media narrative, it's a very harsh perspective.
It's a deeply pessimistic view of the situation in Gaza
Yeah.
and the effectiveness of international efforts to address it.
It's a sad thought.
It is.
After acknowledging some positive feedback from a listener, he answers a question about RAF fighter jets being seen in Gdansk. He connects it to the situation in their country and to what Tusk might reveal, suggesting a possible plan B involving Trump and NATO. It's like he's trying to connect all these different threads.
He's trying to make sense of different pieces of information.
Mhm.
Increased military activity, potential political secrets, international alliances. It all feeds into this bigger picture of potential strategic shifts and growing tension.
It's like putting a puzzle together. He then talks about the relationship between Trump and Putin, describing it as one of mutual distrust. Despite any outward appearances of cooperation, he suggests that if Putin doesn't meet certain expectations, it could lead to a change in strategy, a major war in the Middle East, and Russia betraying Trump, all of which could cause massive unrest in their country. He emphasizes the need for preparedness. It's a very complex and potentially dangerous geopolitical picture.
It really is. It highlights the fragile nature of international relations
Mhm.
and how quickly alliances and conflicts can shift. It's a call to be aware and understand these dynamics.
To be ready for the unexpected.
Exactly.
And finally, he circles back to Beata Klimek, mentions that police conducted searches with excavators on the property where she disappeared, possibly based on his earlier insights. Then he announces his next live broadcast. It brings us full circle, back to that local mystery we started with, and suggests a connection between his perceptions and real-world investigations.
It reminds us that these events are unfolding, and the search for answers continues, sometimes in unexpected ways.
Well, that was quite a deep dive. We covered a lot of ground, from a missing person and a strange light in the sky, to whispers of earthquakes, personal connections, and global anxieties.
It's a reflection of the complex world we live in, and the many different ways we try to understand it. By looking at these seemingly unrelated observations together, we can get a more complete picture, even if it's not always a comfortable one.
So here's something for you to think about. How do our personal experiences connect to the larger events happening in the world? How do we interpret those unusual occurrences, whether it's a feeling about a missing person or something strange we see in the sky, especially in light of potential earthquakes, political secrets, and global tensions? What does it tell us about information, how we receive it, how we understand it, and how different sources, from personal intuition to news reports, can come together in ways we might not always recognize?
It's a question worth pondering.
It really is. Thanks for joining us for another deep dive,
It was a pleasure.
and we'll see you next time.
Until then.